After crossing over, I set up a stall selling grilled sausages at the school gate. That night, a girl walked past me with unsteady steps. Suddenly, countless bullet comments floated before my eyes. The older male lead is too intense. The female lead can barely walk straight. Forced love office play. That's the taste of taboo. So thrilling. Is the female lead the one who's pregnant this time? The moment the wooden stick pierced my index finger, I called out to stop the girl. Ivy, do you need me to call the police for you? The girl halted her steps, turned her head warily, revealing a pair of eyes red from crying. Who are you? I'm your long-lost mother. I lied to her. I'm the bastard child mentioned in the barrage comments. Hello, everyone. Welcome to my channel. Subscribe us to read wonderful novels every day. Now the story begins. Before she could flee in panic, I grabbed her hand first. Liar. Let go of me. Seeing her struggle, I closed my eyes and repeated the words written in her diary. You're 19 this year. Your birthday is June 1st. And you were 3 years old when I abandoned you. The struggling in her hands gradually weakened. Ivy, her reddened eyes welling up with tears once more. She should have believed me. Because I naturally resembled her. Are you really my mom? I nodded without hesitation. Yet she cried even harder. How could you only think of looking for me now? Do you have any idea what I've been through? My chest felt as if it had been struck by a boulder. The pain so intense I could barely breathe. The barrage of comments from my past life had already revealed everything she'd endured. As the female lead in a teacher-student romance novel, she was relentlessly pursued by the male lead under the guise of love. She was finally forced to taste the forbidden fruit after entering university. Instead of embarking on a wonderful college life, she had to drop out to raise the child in her belly. While readers celebrated the happy ending of a family of 3, the story in the book came to an abrupt end. But the tragedy Ivy was destined to endure had only just begun. The town was small, and Ivy, who had an affair with her teacher at a young age, was scorned by everyone before being abandoned by that very teacher. Timid and weak, she struggled to survive with her child. She endured neighbors' insults without retort and her second husband's beatings without resistance. For 50 years I was meek and submissive. Yet I found courage just once. When that person crept into my room to protect me. She accidentally killed someone. The barrage of comments appeared at that very moment. Is this the extra chapter about the teacher-student romance? The female lead is both pitiable and somewhat justified. Folks, take a good look. This is the consequence of not loving yourself. Not only did she ruin herself, but she also dragged her child down with her. Totally deserved it. What kind of decent person gets involved with a teacher at such a young age? As time passed, readers also began to blame her. I found the method to time travel 10 years after Ivy's death. But I was still a step too late. Should we call the police? Ivy shook her head with reddened eyes, speaking word by word, as if speaking slowly enough could deceive herself. He said we were in a relationship. He said doing such things is normal when you're in love. Did you do this willingly? I stared at Ivy's blank face, thinking of her yellowed diary. Across the span of 33 years, every word between the lines revealed her unwillingness. Ivy's face grew increasingly pale, and my heart sank deeper. In her previous life after she died, I read many books on this subject, which stated that many violated girls would brainwash themselves, because believing in being forced is more painful than believing in being loved. Perhaps sensing Ivy's struggle, the barrage of comments appeared again. Rewatching here. Why did the female lead suddenly gain a mother? Heroine. Don't let your mother deceive you. I don't want my sweet campus romance to turn into a legal drama. The heroine's mother looks exactly like the type who'd break up a happy couple. One man's meat is another man's poison. If time travel didn't have restrictions, I'd really beat that bastard to death with a stick. Seeing Ivy still struggling to speak, I sighed and began packing up. If you don't want to go yet, then don't. Later at home, give me the clothes you wore today to change out of. Ivy nodded hesitantly and even came over to help. Her movements were quick and efficient, clearly accustomed to household chores. "I don't need you." I pushed Ivy away and said the word she had told me many times in my past life. "When Mom is here, you don't need to do anything." A muffled sob came from behind, and the hem of my clothes was gently tugged at my side. "Will you stay with me forever?" I didn't answer Ivy's question, instead bending down to pull a cake out of the tricycle. "Happy birthday." The irony was cruel. She lost her innocence on the most childlike of holidays. "Something terrible happened today, but I hope you still have the courage to make a wish." Seeing Ivy about to cry again, I quickly lit the candles and pushed the cake in front of her. "Close your eyes and make a wish. Don't say it out loud, or it won't come true." While Ivy was making her wish, I quickly tidied up the things, thinking about what to do next. "I can only stay in this day. At this time tomorrow, I will die in a car accident orchestrated by the Time Travel Bureau." I had intended to travel back before everything happened, but something went wrong along the way. By the time I arrived, it was already evening, and that incident had already occurred. I stared at Ivy's belly and took out the pills I had prepared long ago. "Mom, I've made my wish. Take them with the cake." Ivy's face instantly turned red. The barrage exploded with comments. "I told you the female lead's mom was no good. How could the female lead have a baby if she took birth control pills? The baby is the key point driving the plot." Before getting pregnant, the female lead was indifferent to the male lead. It was only after having the baby that she gradually accepted him from the heart. Exactly. Because she didn't have a complete family herself. She wanted to give her child a complete family. But now the child is going to be gone. I scooped up a spoonful of cake, placed the pill inside, and brought it to Ivy's lips. "Eat it. It's sweet." Ivy took a step back, the struggle in her eyes more intense than before. "Do I have to eat it? I feel like if I eat this, I'll lose something very important to me." I grabbed Ivy and forcibly stuffed the cake into her mouth, only relaxing after watching her swallow it. "This is the first lesson I'm teaching you. Nothing is more important than yourself, even me." I went with Ivy to her home. To call it a home would be generous. It was just a shabby rented room in an urban village. From as far back as I can remember, there were no maternal grandparents. And later, from Ivy's diary, I learned that shortly after her mother abandoned her, her father remarried. Having a stepfather means having a stepmother. She was kicked out of that home just after starting high school. So it's no wonder she's timid. She's not like me, with no mother to protect her. "Change your clothes first." In the cramped little room, I forced Ivy to change clothes in front of me. While she wasn't paying attention, I tremblingly photographed the marks on non-sensitive areas. Even after restraining myself repeatedly, my eyes still turned red after putting down the phone. The female lead's mother's eyes are red with anger. Is she going to hit the female lead? Hit her. Go ahead. She hits the female lead, which just gives the male lead a chance to comfort her. That's exactly how it went in the story next door. Why do I feel like the female lead's mother is actually heartbroken? "Mom, I'm sorry. Do I embarrass you?" I had just finished packing the clothes when I turned around and saw Ivy with her head bowed, hands gripping the seams of her pants tightly, shoulders trembling. The first time he touched my shoulder, I went to my dad, and he slapped me, saying I was being improper, that I had shamed him, and told me never to come to him again. It turns out she had tried to seek help before, but the first time she reached out, she was judged to be at fault, so she believed it was her own mistake too. She was suffering even more than I had imagined. I too, in my childhood, had misunderstood and resented her under the influence of those idle gossip. A suffocating pain rose in my chest. Taking a deep breath, I steadied Ivy's shoulders. Countless words gathered at the tip of my tongue, only to condense into a single sentence. "Don't apologize. You're not the one at fault." At night, Ivy ran a high fever. Although the bullet comments never mentioned whether the so-called male lead was sick, I still bought preventive medication along with fever reducers and fed them to Ivy, while waiting for her fever to subside. I stared blankly at her face. When I saw her today, I almost didn't recognize her. Though disheartened, she still exuded vitality with her ponytail and clean clothes. In her past life, she always appeared before me hunched over, head bowed, like a broken flower. Yet she could have remained spirited all along. Mom, I'm scared. In the midst of high fever, Ivy suddenly murmured, tears streaming down uncontrollably. I suppressed the throbbing pain in my heart and held her hand. Thin, damp, and warm. How wonderful. It's a living Ivy. Mom is here. This time, it was my tears falling on my hand. Turns out Ivy is just like me. We both call for Mom when we're scared. But in her past life, after she died, I held her photo and called out for 10 years. But she never responded to me. In my previous life, before seeing those bullet comments, my relationship with Ivy was unilaterally terrible. As a child, I felt she had humiliated me because of those rumors and gossip. As I grew older, I began to dislike her timidity and loathe her tendency to make a fuss over nothing. I don't understand why she wouldn't let me go when she found out the classmate's home I was visiting had a single father. Nor do I understand why, despite being domestically abused, she still couldn't bear to divorce, only muttering that the child couldn't be without a father. Even less do I understand why she never let me meet my biological father. By the time I finally understood, it was already too late. I went to buy groceries and made breakfast for Ivy before she woke up. It was just a simple bowl of noodles, but it made her so happy that her eyes turned red. Mom, your noodles are really delicious. I smiled and raised an eyebrow. Briefly felt proud to show off a little in front of Ivy. She once wrote in her diary that during school days, she envied classmates whose mothers made breakfast for them the most. She couldn't understand why those classmates would choose to eat food from outside instead of their mother's cooking. She couldn't even get to eat her own mother's meals. Now, I suppose I've fulfilled her small wish in a way, but she had too many regrets, and the time I could leave her was too short. Brief happiness couldn't smooth out the shadows, but fortunately this time I could accompany her to face them together. Ivy, let me walk you to school today. Ivy remained silent. The barrage comments started to clamor. Is the female lead's mom about to cause trouble? What right does she have to cause trouble? She ignored the female lead for over a decade, and now that the female lead finally has the male lead's love, she shows up to stir trouble. I bet she's just after money. 1. In that other story, the long-lost dad reappeared just for the compensation money. When she takes the money and leaves without a second thought, won't the female lead be left alone to face all the gossip? By then, she might not even get that little bit of love from the male lead. It's clear the barrage comments have quite an opinion about me, but I can't help but ask myself in my heart, can such a twisted love even be considered love? Taking advantage of one's status and position to offer a love-starved child a mere crumb of sweetness, only to demand a lifetime of repayment from that child. That's not love. It's insatiable usury. Ivy. Seeing Ivy not responding, I grew somewhat anxious. I have less than a day left. I will use this day to teach her how to fight back. Teach her to love herself. Teach her to live bravely no matter what happens. But the prerequisite for achieving these is her willingness to take the first step. I'm really scared. Actually, I'm afraid if this blows up, everyone will say it's my fault. It wasn't until I reminded her for the third time that Ivy finally spoke up, her voice trembling. I told my best friend about it before. She comforted me at the time, but the next day she ignored me. When I went to talk to her again, she said I was overthinking it. She said Mr. Fidel is handsome and has such a beautiful girlfriend. So how could he possibly be interested in someone like me? A scrawny little thing. She even said I was the one fantasizing. By the end Ivy's head was nearly buried in the table, her voice breaking with sobs. What's going on? The male lead has a girlfriend. Then what is the female lead? A mistress. The other woman. No. She's the victim. The female lead is the victim. The barrage of comments fell silent in an instant. It was as if these spectators had only just realized that the so-called male lead actually had a girlfriend. Don't be afraid. I stepped forward and took Ivy's hand, countering each of the hurtful words directed at her. If it makes you feel uncomfortable, it means they've crossed the line. Character has nothing to do with looks. You're not a bean sprout. You're a flower waiting to bloom. It was his fault for trying to force growth prematurely. Ivy sobbed and threw herself into my arms, like someone lost for a long time finally seeing a signpost. Don't be afraid even if it blows up. Don't care if others say it's your fault. Because I know you're not wrong. And you must remember you're not wrong. As long as you know you're right. No amount of ink can stain your clothes. I held Ivy tightly, trying to convey a bit of strength to her. The barrage of comments appeared again at this moment, as if a whole new group of people had suddenly taken over. Is this what a mother is? No matter how others see you, a mother will support you unconditionally. I want to cry. Don't be afraid. Heroine. We mothers are here to support you, and we believe you did nothing wrong. Flies don't bother with an uncracked egg. If the heroine didn't seduce the male lead, would he have noticed her? That's just how the world is. Even when it's known the perpetrator is at fault, there will always be those who doubt the victim isn't perfect. But what does it matter if it's not perfect? As long as she is a victim, she has the right to appeal. Mom, come with me to school. With you by my side, I'm not afraid anymore. As if to ease the tension. Along the way, Ivy kept talking nonstop. Mom, how did you know this happened to me? I've been quietly observing you for many days. Yesterday I noticed something was off. So I guessed. I lied without changing my expression. Fortunately, Ivy didn't become suspicious. Mom, why didn't you come find me earlier? I recalled Ivy's comforting words from her diary and repeated them with my head lowered. At first, life was really hard when I went to work in another city. Later, when things got slightly better, I was afraid you'd blame me and felt too ashamed to see you. Turning my head, I caught sight of Ivy's reddened eyes. So I looked up again and spoke with a smile. But now I couldn't bear the longing anymore. So I came to see you. 10 years is too long. I really can't hold on anymore. So I traded the remaining 30 years of my life for this chance to travel back in time. Even if it's just for one day by Ivy's side. Ivy. A laughing voice came from behind. Ivy's expression instantly stiffened. I turned around to face a young, flamboyant, and undeniably handsome face. The barrage of comments also started getting excited. The male lead finally appears. Although it's a bit scummy for him to flirt with the female lead while having a girlfriend. You can't deny he's really handsome. Isn't the male lead just using his good looks to deceive the female lead? What's the use of being handsome? He's still scum. Agreed. The more I think about it, the angrier I get. According to the timeline, the female lead was still a minor when he started getting close to her. The hand hanging by his side suddenly clenched into a fist. The next second, the fist swung towards Fidel's face. Scum. I've wanted to hit you for a long time. Probably concerned about his image. Fidel never fought back. Only dodging frantically. By the time security pulled me away, he had already taken several punches from me. Ivy. What's your relationship with this auntie? And what do you mean by this? Fidel, not daring to provoke me, turned his spearhead toward Ivy. It happened to be the morning rush hour for school, with many students coming and going. Various gazes continuously swept over Ivy. Her body visibly stiffened, and her hands trembled slightly. Ivy, what are you up to? I admit I criticized you a few times yesterday for not paying attention in class. But that's no reason for you to bring outsiders to beat up your teacher. Even though I already knew from my past life how shameless Fidel could be. His attempt to shift the blame still made my chest tighten with anger. Clearly, it was because he had failed to force himself on Ivy last time, and now he was using her declining grades as an excuse to harass her. First a slap, then a sweet date, coercion and bribery towards Ivy. But now, he shifted all the blame onto Ivy. The gazes of the surrounding students grew increasingly hostile toward Ivy. I stepped forward, took Ivy's hand, and shielded her from their stares. With a cold gaze fixed on Fidel, I spoke word by word to my biological father from my past life. Mr. Fidel. I am Ivy's mother. Fidel stiffened, panic flashing in his eyes. Regarding what happened between you and my daughter yesterday, we need to have a serious talk. Would you prefer to discuss it here or in the office? Aren't you still going to keep teaching at this school? As the words fell, the barrage of comments erupted again. The heroine's mother is awesome. The implied meaning is, if this escalates, I can take my daughter and leave, but you'll lose your job. So satisfying. The male lead just threatened the heroine not to make trouble, and now her mother throws his own words back at him. Don't be too optimistic. The female lead has a major weakness in the male lead's hands. If things escalate, she won't get off scot-free either. The suddenly appearing principal helped Fidel make the decision and took us to the office. Thinking of the weakness mentioned in the bullet comments, I glanced worriedly at Ivy. In my past life after her death, I nearly wore out the diary she left behind from constant rereading, but it contained nothing about any weakness. Ivy's parent. Right. Couldn't we have discussed this properly? Why resort to violence? Mr. Fidel is a specially appointed teacher at our school. What if something happens to him and it affects the other children? Even if you don't care, shouldn't Ivy care about her classmates' feelings? The principal, without distinguishing right from wrong, immediately placed me and Ivy in a morally inferior position. I turned to look at Ivy and, sure enough, saw guilt written on her face. It's okay. I held her hand and leaned close to her ear. You're just defending your rights. The rest are just excuses from the abuser. Seeing Ivy look a bit more relaxed, I finally let out a sigh of relief. Fidel. About you sexually assaulting my daughter. Before I could finish speaking, Fidel slammed a delicate piece of stationery in front of me, his face brimming with confidence. Ivy, so you tattle to your parents after getting rejected in a confession. You're truly the worst student I've ever taught. The pink stationery was signed by Ivy. I remembered the leverage mentioned in the bullet comments, and my heart sank uncontrollably. Don't pick it up. Seeing me crouch down, Ivy panically pulled me back as if she'd seen a ghost, but I still caught a glimpse of the letter's content. Mr. Fidel. I like you. The barrage of comments that had been silently watching also started mocking me. TSK. The female lead's mom must be dumbfounded. She thought her daughter was the victim, never expecting her to be the restless one. The female lead is such a hypocrite, acting all pitiful in front of her mom while secretly flirting with the male lead. I wonder how they're going to handle this mess now. Mom, I'm sorry. It's not your fault. Why are you apologizing? I picked up the letter, looking at the unfamiliar handwriting, and thought of Ivy's words written in the diary. Later I asked her why she did it, and she said it was just a prank. I asked if she knew what consequences that prank had brought me, and she said she was too young at the time to think that far, adding that it had been so many years and I should just let it go. From beginning to end, she never apologized to me. No wonder Ivy was so terrified of this love letter. So it was because it was the instigator of the nightmare. This wasn't Ivy's writing. I stared at Fidel, trying to detect a hint of surprise in his eyes. It's a pity there isn't. Fortunately, there isn't. If you say it's not, then it's not. Just call all your classmates here, and we can compare handwriting. The situation reached a deadlock. Fidel pursed his lips with an unreadable expression, as if contemplating some countermeasure. I glanced at the time. It was already 11 o'clock, and I had less than 6 hours left to live. We had to speed things up. I've already collected the evidence of you harassing my daughter. I could have just called the police. I paused, looking at Fidel. The mockery in his eyes perfectly matched the barrage of comments appearing at that moment. I told you it was about money. Poor female lead really thought this mother who fell from the sky was here to help her. The female lead is just too trusting. Without a paternity test, who knows if this woman is really her mother? If she's not the female lead's mother, then how does she know all these things? And why does she look so much like the female lead? Could she be a distant relative? Name your price. How much do you think what you did to my daughter is worth? There was a heavy thud behind me as something hit the floor, and I instinctively turned my head. Ivy slumped to the ground, looking at me in despair. It seemed certain that I had come for the money. Fidel sat comfortably in the chair, amusedly sizing up both me and Ivy on the ground. Let me calculate. Fidel ignored the principal's warning gaze and genuinely began enumerating his own faults. The tone was exactly the same as Ivy's after her death, when I took Ivy's diary to find him. Completely indifferent, even somewhat nostalgic. Holding hands, touching backs, kissing. Isn't that what dating is all about? Do you need me to spell out the details for you? With every word he spoke, Ivy's face grew paler. My hands, hidden in my pockets, couldn't help but tremble. I clenched my teeth, telling myself to hold on. Are you two in a relationship? I asked Fidel, but my gaze remained fixed on Ivy's retreating figure. I've set the stage for so long. I've plunged her into despair once more, all just to make her take this step. Of course. No. A faint voice came from beside my feet. The seed sown in the cliff has finally taken root in despair. I'm not in a relationship with you. You forced me into this. Ivy glanced at me expressionlessly, pushed herself up from the ground, and walked, slowly but resolutely, toward Fidel. You threatened to withhold my graduation if I refused. You took advantage of the fact that I have no parents to turn to, that I'm introverted with no friends, that I'm too timid and powerless to seek help. So you kept pushing me. You claim we're dating, but you never once asked for my consent. I disagree. Fidel was taken aback for a moment, then smiled playfully. Even if you disagree, I've already done it. What can you do about it? I've got plenty of money. The shameless words enraged the barrage of comments. This male lead is trash. I'll crowdfund to castrate him. Damn it. What sweet teacher-student romance. This is seduction. Coercion. This is a crime. Heroin. Don't be afraid. Even if your mother might choose money over standing by your side, we will always stand behind you, supporting you in defending your rights. The moment the barrage comments disappeared, Ivy shuddered slightly, as if that counterattack had drained all her courage, or as if she knew there was truly no one behind her. So I stood behind her. I can't do anything to you, but the law can. The moment the police waiting outside broke through the door, I saw Fidel's terrified face. Strangely, it overlapped somewhat with my past life. In my past life, when I stabbed the knife into his body, he had the same expression, as if he couldn't understand why I didn't want money but only his life. You already called the police. So why did you just now? On the way home, Ivy, who had been silent for a long time, finally spoke again. I didn't answer but instead opened my phone and handed it to her. The law can only deliver Fidel the punishment he deserves, but I fear those unaware of the full story might blindly assume Ivy is also at fault. So, based on my understanding of Fidel's arrogance, I set that trap, recorded their conversation, and posted it online. The outcome was even better than I had imagined. Heartbreaking. But girl, you must stay brave. Daring to fight back is just the first step. You must maintain this courage forever. Occasionally, there might be a couple of negative comments, but they quickly get drowned out by criticism. Thank you. When returning the phone to me, Ivy's posture unconsciously straightened considerably. You're not my mom, are you? I froze, only then realizing that since coming back from school, Ivy hadn't called me mom even once. I almost believed it. Because you really do look a lot like me. But my mom has a mole on her right ear. You don't. Everyone in my family has one. I touched my ear, feeling awkward for the first time. No matter who you are. Thank you. Without you, I truly wouldn't have had the courage to take this step. The moment I was pulled into that familiar embrace, the tears I'd been holding back for so long finally fell. Ivy is a coward. But Ivy is never weak. She simply had no choice. In her diary, she wrote about how she had been thinking of fighting back and resisting during those days. She came up with many ideas. But the arm is no match for the thigh. She feared gossip. But that summer after her freshman year, she still anonymously sent a letter reporting Fidel's misdeeds. Yet it still didn't succeed. She also thought about calling the police. But by then, there was no evidence left. She wrote in her diary that if someone had appeared to help her at that time, she would have mustered the courage to stand up and resist. But later, with my arrival, she truly became increasingly timid. The gossip didn't kill her, but she feared it would affect me. In the last 2 hours of this world, I went with Ivy back to her home, perhaps having resolved the major concern weighing on her mind. Ivy looked much more at ease, chattering away about her future plans. She said she would work part-time to support her studies and become a teacher after graduation. That's wonderful. Teacher. You'll definitely make a great teacher. I watched as the clock hands slowly approached the final moment, rubbing his reddened eyes. He stood up with a smile. Ivy. I'm going home now. Ivy was taken aback, holding my hand with a gaze full of reluctance. Will you come to see me again in the future? Not in this lifetime. Let me tell you a secret. I'm the grown-up version of you. In the future, you have a happy family, a successful career, and a beautiful child. I lifted my head to keep the tears from falling. Everything is wonderful, except for one lingering regret. Not making Fidel that bastard pay for what he deserved. So I came back to help you get revenge together. Seeing Ivy's face momentarily blank, I greedily hugged her one last time. Sorry for taking advantage of you all day. Actually, that was my lifelong wish. Being a mother is too hard. So if possible, I wish you were my daughter. No matter what happens, you must live well. The difficulties are only temporary. Your future will truly be wonderful and full of happiness. The moment the clock struck the hour, I let go of Ivy and ran out the door. The instant the vehicle crashed into me, the barrage of comments flooded in again. Unfortunately, before I could make them out clearly, I lost consciousness once more. Folks. Case solved. She's the female lead's daughter. Rumor has it this book originally had an extra chapter, but it was too tragic, so the author deleted it. But I remember the daughter in that extra chapter looked exactly like this. Ivy. The moment Ivy ran out, that person had already vanished into thin air. Only the barrage of comments and the video on her phone reminded her that this wasn't a dream, but reality. No wonder she could tell at a glance that the other person wasn't her mother. Yet she couldn't help feeling close to and trusting them. No matter what the barrage said, she still felt that this person would help her without reservation. It wasn't mom after all. It was the daughter. Ivy recalled the wish she had made on her birthday. That was their first meeting. She handed her a cake and said that although the day had been terrible, she hoped she would still have the courage to make a wish. Ivy examined the woman's tattered clothes and weather-beaten face. With closed eyes, she made the first wish of her life. I feel she's had a hard life. I wish to be her mother in the next life, and I'll definitely love her well. Ivy opened her eyes, touched her little belly, and burst into tears. She personally fed her the bite of cake wrapped around the pill. Only later did I realize that bite of cake was bitter. The true meaning of nothing is more important than yourself was, as long as Ivy could be happy, then it would be fine even if she ceased to exist. That person left, and the barrage comments never appeared again. Ivy's once closest friend came to apologize for the prank they'd played back then. Ivy did not forgive. Fidel was sentenced. Of course, there were also whispers surrounding Ivy, saying that flies don't land on an uncracked egg, that it takes two to tango. Ivy raised her hand and slapped the person, asking if it was loud enough. Later, Ivy went to work at a school in the north after graduation. On her first day at work, Ivy saw her real mother at the school. She looked very much like her, with a mole on the side of her ear, in the same spot as hers. She was also there to drop off her own daughter. Ivy was a thing of the past to her. Not all mothers love their daughters. Ivy had long understood this truth, yet couldn't help thinking of the child who had personally strangled her own life. Later on, Ivy went to teach in a mountainous area. On the way, the car broke down. Ivy found the scenery beautiful and looked around. When she suddenly heard a baby crying, Ivy stepped forward and froze. The little baby in the basket looked strikingly similar to her childhood photos, the only difference being the absence of a mole by the ear. Ivy initially wanted to register the child under her own name, but remembering the child who had once tried to end her life without hesitation, she ultimately registered the baby as her younger sister during household registration, naming her Liz. Then began the days of juggling work and raising a child. Fortunately, the colleagues were also very kind to Ivy's adopted child. Only, Ivy would occasionally have dreams at night. In the dreams, the gossip had never ceased since freshman year. During this time, Fidel kept pestering her. Later, Ivy also picked up a child while teaching in the rural area. Since the classmates already viewed Ivy with prejudice, they instinctively assumed the child was Ivy's. And Fidel, to force Ivy into submission, also claimed the child was his. Ivy was forced to drop out of school and began raising the child. Several more years passed. Ivy finally freed herself from Fidel's harassment. Ivy got married through an introduction by someone else. Married life was a complete mess, but she told herself that her past misfortunes were due to not having a complete family, so she chose to endure, until that person actually began to lay hands on their child. Enraged, Ivy raised the knife. Upon waking, Ivy was in tears. The tiny infant struggled to lift its hand and wiped them for her, and spoke its first words in this lifetime. "Sister."